A Brief History of Art Education Leaders, and Pedagogy by SSheats. In medieval and Renaissance Europe, assistants and apprentices worked under master artists in professional studios. Master artists and artisans taught apprentices their craft. After 10 years or so, and when an apprentice produced work of sufficient standard and quality, he could become a master artisan, open his own studio, take an apprentice, and repeat the cycle of education. The Academy. The Academy was the result of the idea of having more than one master train an aspiring artist. Academies in Europe. The first academy was founded in 1563 in Florence, Italy, and called Accademia di Belle Arti di Firenze. The success of the Accademia led to the founding of more academies across Europe, most notably the Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture in Paris in 1648. In his proposed hints for an academy in 1749, Benjamin Franklin advocated for art education, that handwriting and drawing be taught in a public school setting. In 1821, basic art education was introduced in public schools. However, it was met with opposition. Over the next 40 years, art instruction was adopted in U.S. schools in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Cleveland. Massachusetts became the first state to adopt art as a part of the general education curriculum. In 1880s, art education was recognized as important in training the eye, the hand, and the mind. Art education has come a long way since its introduction in public schools in 1821, but we lack accurate documentation and data about art education through the years. We can see evidence of the evolution of art education by looking back at notable exhibits that included public school student work. Some of these exhibits that included work from public school students were the Philadelphia Centennial Expo in 1876, the World's Columbian Expo in 1893, and the St. Louis Expo in 1904. Some more notable exhibits that included work from public school students were the Jamestown Expo in 1907, where art and manual training teachers united and the result was industrial arts, as well as the San Francisco Expo and San Diego Expo in 1915, where work featured demonstrated a closer relationship between art and industrial education. Objects were made with practical uses in mind and apparent in design. Art was featured in common objects and created for the masses. Art education began to include art thinking, art judgment, art appreciation, and became an integral part of public school education curriculum. This chart was created to demonstrate the evolving trend in art education in the United States since its beginning in 1821. The curved line highlights where emphasis has been placed on art education over time. The Department of Education's Fast Response Survey System report, Arts Education in Public Elementary and Secondary Schools from 1999 to 2000 and 2009 to 2010, noted that there is a solid foundation of arts education in U.S. schools. However, it also noted extreme inequities in students' access to arts education. It stated that arts education is not universally available in the United States. It is too often limited to art and music, and it occurs inconsistently across grades. Standards in art. The standards movement emerged with the 1994 passage of the Goals 2000 Educate America Act. The act established the National Education Standards and Improvement Council, which was responsible for finding organizations to write the standards in art. There were 3 goals for the standards development process. First, to ensure that the standards reflect the best ideas in education both in the U.S. and internationally. Second, to ensure that they reflected the best knowledge about teaching, And third, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, ensures service to children with disabilities throughout the nation. IDEA governs how states and public agencies provide early intervention, special education, and related services to more than 6.5 million eligible infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities. The standards themselves were to define what students should know and be able to do. To that end, that all students learn to use their minds well, so that they may be prepared for responsible citizenship, further learning, and productive employment in our nation's modern economy. A group of arts teachers in dance, music, theater, and visual arts came together and completed the work necessary. They released the National Standards of Arts Education in 1994. The introduction of the standards set out the following purposes for that document. Standards for arts education are important for two fundamental reasons. First, they help define what a good education in the arts should provide, a thorough grounding in a basic body of knowledge and the skills required both to make sense and to make use of each of the arts discipline, including the intellectual tools to make qualitative judgments about artistic products and expression. Second, when states and school districts adopt the standards, they're taking a stand for rigor informed by a clear intent. A set of standards for arts education says, in effect, an education in the arts means that students should know what is spelled out here, reach specified levels of attainment, and do both at defined points in their education. Three arts educators that had significant influence on education in the United States were Hans Hofmann, Walter Gropius, and Arthur Wesley Dow. Hans Hofmann lived from 1880 to 1966. As a young man in Paris at the beginning of the 1900s, Hofmann immersed himself in Paris's avant-garde art scene and was influenced by two of his contemporaries, Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse. In 1915, Hofmann opened a school in Munich, Germany. He established several schools and conducted classes in New York and Provincetown. He eventually moved to New York. Hofmann encouraged his students to observe and react to nature, whether working representationally or abstractly. His teaching emphasized the expressive aspects of light, color, and space, the dialogue between teacher and student, and the importance of maintaining a sustained studio practice. Over his 50-year teaching career, Hofmann taught hundreds of students, many of whom would become important college educators and notable artists themselves. Walter Gropius lived from 1883 to 1969. He was a German-American educator and architect who had significant influence on modern architecture. Around the same time Hofmann opened his school in Munich, architect Gropius launched the Bauhaus in nearby Weimar in 1919. Gropius integrated aspects of the atelier and academy models to form an interdisciplinary art and design school called the Bauhaus. Gropius's mission of art for all connected the artist with technology and craft with industry. Bauhaus fused experimentation and various craft tradition and craftsmanship. It included 4 years of study, portions of which would have a lasting influence on art curricula in the United States. When Nazis closed the Bauhaus, Gropius moved to the United States to work at Harvard University. Arthur Wesley Dow lived from 1857 to 1922. Dow studied in Paris and returned to the United States to work as a commercial designer and eventually an educator. He taught at Pratt Institute and the Art Student League. In his 1899 book, Composition, Dow proposed a set of universal visual principles that became known as the elements of art and principles of design. In 1903, he became head of the art department at Columbia University Teachers College, where he had great influence on the first generation of American modern painters. In his work, Dow used an approach that was radically inclusive for its time. He employed images of European artworks as well as works from Japan, Mexico, and cultures on the African continent. The elements of art and the principles of design continue to be taught in public school art curricula. Research has consistently found that arts education gives students the tools to make sense of their world and make connections between disparate ideas, while also making connections between themselves and others. Researchers found that the social and emotional benefits of arts education exist for students at all grades and levels. The arts provide opportunities for individuals to collaborate and connect with others. The arts bring communities together. Art education empowers people to transfer art knowledge and content to other settings, both in and outside of school. Pedagogy. Context and community play a significant role in learning. I would like to work on integrating the philosophy of action-oriented learning or connecting learning to one's lived experience to create a cycle of inquiry and action. Reflecting on the impact of your actions will facilitate refined inquiry and further action. This idea affords students the opportunity for reflection. It also aligns with the practice of socially just teaching, promoting thinking about identity, access, and equity, the privilege and disadvantages that exist in the world around age, race, gender, sexual preference, religion, class, and physical and mental ability. Using an action-oriented philosophy in my teaching, I hope to help my students create meaning in their art and connect more of my art curriculum to the learning my students are doing in other classes in school and to their world outside of school.